It's Patio Side Chats with Fernando Martinez from Chaparral Pavers with tips and advice on landscaping and gardening. Here's Fernando Martinez.
Yes, indeed. I am Fernando Martinez of Chaparral Pavers, and I'm here with my partner,
Jonathan Araya. How you doing, everyone?
Yeah, glad you're with us today. We got another great show lined up for you. And today I wanted to talk about color in the landscaping. A lot of people ask us for color when we go on these appointments together, and we do a lot of. Color comes in all kinds of different forms. You can get a lot of different colors with pavers. Let's start talking about that with pavers versus concrete and coloring.
Pavers versus concrete with coloring. So everybody knows you can get your concrete essentially stamped, and you can add a little bit of color. What some people don't understand is pavers are a concrete product. The difference is the color of the concrete, in this case of pavers, runs all the way through. Meaning if you chip it or if anything happens to that paver, the color will still be the same. With concrete, that's not necessarily the case. You have to, if it gets hit, you'd have to replace the whole pad. Pavers are extremely beautiful in the colors that you could get, and in the mix you could get. You can have percentages of colors all within one patio. With concrete, you can't do that again.
It's real hard to pick out your color of concrete because the only way to do that is with a catalog or a picture, or maybe you can go see another driveway, but they can't show you what it's going to look like until they actually mix the color into the concrete. And the base color that the concrete is itself is going to affect that color.
And another thing that I've noticed now that we're on that subject is you may be going for a color, but it'll dry a totally another way. Like I think of a project that we were in solving.
Right.
And the client wanted to do stamped concrete with a color finish on top. He was going for beige, and by the time it was all done, I just saw gray. It just dried and cured differently. I'm assuming the concrete contractor would have to go back and
you can do
and do another color coat on it or something.
You can't really. I mean, you can stain it on the top, but now what color is that going to be? Again, you don't really know until they put that color on. So the base color, I've found that over time the color is not consistent. It's like when you buy a decomposed granite at the rock yard. It's some variation of either dark tan, medium tan, light tan. Well, concrete's the same way in cement. When they mix that and that base color, it's not always the exact same color. The color that they're adding to it is the exact same color every time, but that's where the variance comes in, and how much color they add to it. They're asking for ratios and things like that based on, again, a catalog, and it'll say a color number. It'll give them an amount of how much color to put in per yard to get that color. But then you've got so much water in that mix. And again, we go back to, we talk about pavers all the time, about the strength of them and the PSI. But part of that is there's so much water in just regular poured concrete that it is able to fade. It's not as dense. It's not as tight in that.
Yeah, we've all walked around and seen, a concrete pad or walkway that's been stained, but in some areas it's darker than others, and you can see that the sun has, the UV rays have actually taken that color off and diminished the strength of that color. So,
and it's even worse on the color that they put on the top, because a lot of times they'll have a base color, and then as they're stamping the concrete, they're putting in more color on the top, and that color is very shallow and very easily affected by the UV rays of the sun. You're exactly right.
Not only that, but they have to throw on some tint too. I remember another project we had in Nepoma where we actually had a concrete guy come out and help us on a project that was really, really big, and that tint color, the homeowners were not 100% happy with that tint color. And I think of everything that could go wrong in that scenario, and that's one of them.
Like at least with paint, when you're painting the house, you can put a couple swatches up there and paint, and then let it dry. That's really what it's going to look like. And when you're going to paint the house, you can paint over that. But with concrete, you can't just pour a little tiny piece and see, or tint one corner. That corner is always going to be that tint. So the one of the best solutions for that really is going to be with pavers, going with pavers. It is a concrete. I think people do forget. We were talking about it earlier today. Pavers are concrete. It's just another form of concrete being put down, and the color is already in it all the way through it. And because they're so dense and that very strong PSI rating they have, because they're made with very little water, that is the color, and there's very little fading on the color. We can literally physically show you every color that's available, and what we show you in real life samples of the pavers is exactly what the color of your driveway or patio or walkway is going to be, and that to me is huge.
Now let me paint a picture for you here. Let's think about something real quick. I think one of the biggest answers I have for most people on color is, don't make it match your house too much.
No, for sure.
It's that classic case of, hey, I got a beige house and I want to go with a sandstone or cream brown paver. Nothing wrong with those colors. They're beautiful. But I think, in essence, get crazy, get wild, add some color, some variation, borders that are darker or borders that are lighter, double borders. You want to elaborate on what borders are?
Well, here's the thing. Let's back up a second, because when you're looking at a driveway, an entry, a courtyard, a walkway up to your house, if you're looking at your home and you're, of course, we all consider what color's the house, what color's the trim. Do we do a different color around the windows? Is there any kind of molding or, accenture to the house? A lot of homes have cultured stone now these days, and they're multicolors. And then if you look at it, it's just gray, blah, whatever concrete. It's like no color. It's almost white. Okay, so then if you decide it's all cracked, or you want to either replace it or you want to put something in new, and you want to add color, which is what we're talking about doing, you have to decide on the material. So if you make a decision to go with a colored concrete, you're going to run into a lot of issues, what we're just talking about. So then you can finally decide, okay, let's go with pavers, and we know exactly what the color is going to be going in. We have the samples. We can bring the samples to the house. We can put them out against the garage, against the front door, against the trim of the house, and really see how those colors are going to play off. Now you've got a really good material. You're solid on that the color's not going to fade. You know exactly what that color is going to be. Now you can step back and say, okay, let's get designy. Let's really go out there and let's get some pop out of what would normally be a benign surface, and really have either no color or some color that would fade and you would potentially not be happy with. And we all know, you don't want to get into a situation where, oh my gosh, we poured this massive driveway and it's completely the wrong color. I've seen red go down, turn into pink, dark brown, it becomes light tan, and people live with it, or you try to paint it and then the paint comes off, or, there's really, it's hard solutions. But
we just got a call the other day from a gentleman that we'll be seeing next week at one of our bids, that talked about how he had a guy do his concrete driveway years back, and he, did the color treatment to it. And he says he hates the look. It's not cracked. It's not broken. Nothing's wrong with it. But the color makes his house stand out like a sore thumb, is what he said.
Yeah, it was a nice neighborhood. And I cannot tell you how many times I heard that over the years, which is why I wanted to bring it up today on the show. It's you can prevent having a bad experience and feeling like you've made a mistake by going with pavers, and it just eliminates a lot of the guesswork out of it. So once you get to that point and you're trying to decide on a color, Jonathan, you're exactly right. You don't want to be matchy with the tan house, the tan pavers, and the tan wall. It's okay. Like you're saying, it's mild. It's very neutral. Sometimes if you're just fixing up the house to sell it, you don't want to over personalize to a certain degree, but there is something to having complementary colors that are different from each other, or contrasting colors. Also, another thing that we like to do from the design standpoint is to tie in the color of the roof. A lot of people's roof tiles are different color than their house, and you may have a tan house with a dark brown trim, but maybe got charcoal roof tiles. We could tie in a nice charcoal, or we could even do it like a brown charcoal to tie in the house and the roof. Dark colors are great for driveways, because what happens on driveways? You get a lot
tire marks.
A lot of tire marks.
Yeah, a tremendous amount of tire marks. And you think it's bad on pavers. Wait until you see it on concrete.
Oh, it's even worse. It looks terrible. Or if you have a garage that's not, you don't just pull straight in, you have to come in your driveway and then turn into the garage. You see those turning marks, just, I mean, it lays down a lot of rubber right there. So if you could choose a dark color for your pavers for a driveway, and it can complement the roof tiles or pull in one of the colors from the house without matching it, it just, I mean, it's an amazing look. And you talk about adding color to the front of your house and really doing it in a way that's going to work and last for a really long time.
Not only color, but I think texture too.
Yeah.
When you look at something, I think they coincide with each other. You need to have texture, I feel. And sometimes concrete is just flat. You know, and by the time you add a stamp and color, I mean, the price difference isn't much.
No,
if you're looking at it from a price standpoint.
You're absolutely right.
I love the fact that I have pavers personally. I mean, I can't sell pavers unless I have the product myself.
Right.
And I love the look, the curb appeal it's given my house.
Yeah.
The color, I couldn't do that with concrete. I mean, I could have tried with tile, but tile is slippery and it doesn't look right, and you got to grout it, and by the time that gets done, it just doesn't look right.
You're right. And you brought up a good point, because you can mix the colors that you can pour concrete with red and tan pavers and charcoal and brown right next to each other, you know, and we've done that. I actually did 3 colors. It was sandstone, sandstone blend, the red, which is called sunburst, and coastal moss, which is a gray and greenish gray. All 3 colors, 33% each color. I thought, oh my goodness, if there's going to be a mistake that you could make with color
this would be it.
That would have been the one. I tried to talk them out of it. I said, are you sure you want to do this? We're 100% sure. They had several different other materials in the area that were being used, flagstone on one area, concrete around a pool. And we were kind of trying to, the house was tan. So we were trying to tie them all in together. And when we finished, I didn't really look at the individual pavers themselves, because you had to kind of stand back and just get an overall view of the whole yard. It was quite a bit of square footage. It was over in Los Alamos, and it turned out beautiful. I was blown away by how good it looked. It was,
and that's why I say get crazy, because a lot of people think, no, that's when you look at one paver, for instance, you come to our shop, we welcome you through the doors. First thing you'll do is offer them a cup of coffee. By the time they get to me and the paver display we have, they're looking at just 3 pavers, 3 paver pieces. And it's really hard to visualize the whole project when you're only looking at 3 pieces. It's like looking at art. If you only look at the corner of an art piece, you're going to think nothing is extravagant about it until you see the full picture.
Right.
What we do essentially is you need to honestly trust your instincts to a certain point, but then get crazy. Add color. Don't worry what it's going to... You can't mess it up. Well, I haven't seen one till this day that is messed up. The only thing that I see in pavers that go wrong are the cuts that I see.
Yeah. Well, there's craftsmanship, and or if they didn't do the base right, and you see the, you know, up and down, and they
see the waves.
You see that, and don't think to yourself, okay, that's what pavers do. They just weren't installed correctly. Pavers should be as flat as any concrete surface you've ever seen, and it should be that for a really, really long time. So that's one part of the yard that a lot of people forget about color and forget about adding that color. And then when they do, we want you to think about not matching everything and either complementary colors or contrasting colors to really get some pop out of your basically all your flat areas that you're going to be walking on, driving on, back patios. And think of it in those terms, not necessarily strictly in functionality, because pavers are very functional as well, which is an amazing win-win. So that's that. We're going to do a little bit of housekeeping here right now and let our sponsors put a plug in, and we'll be right back. This show is brought to you by Chaparral Pavers, the go-to company for all things pavers. So if you're thinking about doing or installing a new walkway, patio, or driveway, call on Chaparral Pavers, 805-588-6917. And catch us on the web at ilovetoComeHome.com. Okay, so now I wanted to talk about what else can we do for color in the yard besides adding in the colorful pavers that we could do for our hardscape.
Plantings. We could get really creative.
Yeah.
Fuchsias, purples, golds, reds, blues, greenery.
Even the greens, yeah, you're absolutely right. With the greens, and a lot of leaves are bluish gray and have a lot of different textures and things. So you've got all your hardscaping in, and we always tell people leave room for the planters and go a little big on them. You know, the standard planter's 3 foot. Everybody goes in there and they're 3 foot planters, and, you know, even 2 feet. I've seen 1 foot planters. And it's just there's no sense of planning ahead with a bed that small, because most of your plants are going to get 3 to 4 or 5 feet wide for them to look good and thrive and to give you all those blooms. Because what ends up happening when the plant starts growing out over an area where you don't want it, you cut it off and you end up cutting off all the flowers. So that's something that could be planned ahead when you're doing your hardscaping, is to leave 5, 6, I've left 7, 8, 9 foot planters if there's space. You got room for maybe a large bush or a small tree, and then you can do some other plantings around there. Now, when it comes to plant material, a lot of requests that we get are for the year-round colors. Does it bloom year-round? Does this bloom year-round? Which is great for some plants, but I don't think it's a good idea, personally, from design standpoint, to do your whole yard in plants that bloom year-round. Because after a while, you just get so used to seeing them over and over, day in, day out. They're always flowering. There just doesn't seem to be anything that special about them. It's nice to have it throughout the yard so that you get some color all the time, but you should also have other types of plants that definitely have a season and bloom at a certain time of year. And then you can think about how many of those types of plants, of spring blooming plants and summer blooming plants and plants that bloom in the fall and plants that bloom in the winter, and arrange them so that you're getting color year round that way in different plants. And then things start to become a little more special. And it's like, ooh, okay, the lilacs are blooming right now. Or,
it's like women with their hair. You know, my wife does not need to go from blonde to brunette, whatever, ombre look. But it's nice because this morning I pulled out of my driveway and I have a couple flowers blooming that weren't there, orange colored. And before it was just a plain green looking shrub. But I mean, just the fact that something was different caught my eye.
Well, they were alströmerias, right? I remember we were talking about the alströmerias, and they're kind of bulb-like in a way, and I'm glad you brought that up, because bulbs are the most magical plant you can plant. I don't know if you've ever planted narcissus, the daffodils, or tulips, or iris. There's so many types of bulbs out there that you can plant, and what you do is they come in this bulb form, and you dig a hole and you stick them in the ground and you cover them with dirt, and then you water, you put the sprinkler or drip or whatever you're going to do there, and it's like there's nothing there. It's like just zero. And then when spring comes along, they poke up out of the ground with these leaves, and then after a few weeks of that, they start to bloom, and these flowers are absolutely amazing. In fact, I saw some Watsonias at an appointment we were at today that I used to have at my house, and I'd forgotten about them. And I don't know what happened to them. They got eaten by a gopher or something. But I used to have Watsonias and these bulbs, and they would come up every year. And you do. It's like you forget that they're there. Like I know I've got freesias, and I have daffodils in my rose garden across the street from my house. And it's like they're not even there, until the springtime comes, and then they bloom, and it's an amazing surprise. I take my camera out there and I take pictures of them, because I know they're only going to be there for a few weeks, and then when they finish flowering, the leaves die back, they disappear again. So things like that, to me, really add a lot to the landscape. But besides bulbs, which are kind of extreme in the realm of what we're talking about, there's other plants that are deciduous. You know what I mean by deciduous? Most people, at least I hope they know, is that means it loses its leaves in the winter. And that really could turn a lot of people off from plants at the nursery. We're walking through, as a contractor, what we like to do when we do planting plans for people with, a couple hundred plants or whatever, it's a good idea to go to the nursery with the client. And as we're walking through the nursery and showing them the plants, seeing what they like, seeing what colors they like, it's good to know yourself too, is another point of, do you like pastel colors? Do you like, the soft, colors, the pinks and the lavenders and the rose colors? Or are you a bright, cheery, yellows and reds? I know you're a yellow, red, orange guy.
I do, because we work so close together with clients and things like that, and we go to the nursery together. Fernando hit it right on the head with, man, I just love that orange, that fiery orangey red in a parrot's beak, the lotus. I mean, it's just it
like a red hibiscus or the orange lion's tails or the yellow. There's tons of yellow. Is probably one of the hardest color to find in plants. It's not a normal color. I mean, pinks and purples seem to be the easiest.
Yeah.
There's so many plants that bloom pink and purple. So I get excited when I see a certain variety, a yellow iris. It's like they're normally purple or white, and to see lantanas in yellow, it's just yellow is a good, fun, cheery color. And when you find it, because again, it's not as common, it's kind of nice, to have that in your yard. But as I'm walking through the nurseries with the clients and we're discussing the plant material, and let's say we see a lilac bush, which are amazing blooms and totally fragrant, and one of my favorite plants, and I tell them, well, it loses leaves in the winter, it goes deciduous. Oh, we definitely don't want that. I mean, it's just like nixed immediately, out of the realm. And I struggle with that because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you're going to miss out. Every spring when my lilacs bloom this year better than they bloomed any year previous. I'm out there, I'm kind of silly about it probably, but I'm out there taking pictures of my lilac bush because I've never seen it with that many blooms on it. I have one white one, which is incredible pristine white, and that's another color people tend to forget about in the garden. You don't really consider white
color, but you're absolutely right.
And they look fantastic.
It's contrast,
at night.
I feel. That white and mixing that with the purples or a red or something, it's just contrast.
Well, even the green leaves behind with the plant, lilac bushes have heart-shaped leaves, and they're really just a green, vibrant green, and then you put that white big bloom in front of there, and they're like a series, it's like this big cone of a series of small, tiny blooms all put together, and they're super fragrant. They're just absolutely gorgeous. They bloom for maybe 3 to 4 weeks, and then the blooms all turn brown, but then the leaves really come in strong. And my purple one takes a little bit longer, so it's sitting there with the sticks on it. Then the leaves start to kind of come out, and these blooms, purple blooms come out. And I don't know, to me, lemon verbena is another one that goes deciduous, but it has one of the best fragrances ever. Nice, long, elongated green leaves, little white flowers that come off of it as well. So, Japanese maple is another one. We've planted quite a few Japanese maples over the years, and I love them, but okay, they lose their leaves in the winter. When they come out with brand new, I have a really dark maroon purple leaf Japanese maple at my house, and when it comes out, this new tiny little leaves, like the whole tree looks bare, and then you see all these little tiny brand new growth. The whole tree looks like brand new leaves. To me, it's incredible. You just don't get that from a year-round, evergreen shrub. I've got some polygalas, which is another plant that I love. The giant, we have Polygala grandiflora.
Oh, the sweet peas.
The sweet pea shrub, the giant sweet pea shrub. That thing constantly has flowers, and it's gotten big at my house, and I love that bush. But I don't ever stop. And I mean, even those, they look like sweet pea blooms. They're gorgeous flowers. But it's rare that I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that bloom. Because I see it every day, day in, day out. It's over by my trash cans, and I walk by it. It's always blooming. And that's great, I guess, if you'd come over and you'd never seen a sweet pea shrub before, you might say, wow, that's a really cool bush, But I get bored with it. I never get bored of my lilacs. I never get tired of seeing the Japanese maple leaf out. It's just amazing. And that's why I love roses too. Roses are the same thing. You cannot, I don't know if it's a new era or maybe I'm old school, whatever. I love rose bushes. They're not common to I mean, popular belief is that they're very they're take a lot
not common anymore. You don't see as many on public places anymore. Yeah, I agree. Another thing I wanted to touch base on too when we're talking about color. So we've covered our hardscape pavers. Yeah. We've covered our plants that provide color.
Right.
Sometimes, like Fernando was explaining, white can be a really good color amongst a tremendous amount of other colors. But one thing that I think a lot of people miss too is the power of stained wood chips. Bark.
Yeah.
The power of cobblestones, the gray tones with a little bit of the black and maybe some green emerald look to it as well, especially if you get like a cobblestones like we do. Yeah. I think that colors bounce off of each other. You need that gray to make the purple fuchsia color look really good. You need that dark brown color to make the white look really good.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. The old, okay, so you get done all the plantings, you put the drip system down, and you got your flower beds all taken care of. Now, what do you cover the ground with to give yourself a mulch layer to help hold the water in and keep the weeds down? Usually it's bark. I mean, that seems to be, one of the more common things. And nowadays, rather than just putting down either gorilla hair or wood chips or just whatever, a lot of that stuff fades really fast. We used to put down the gorilla hair, and within 6 months, it's turning this kind of ashy gray color, and it didn't really give us any pop. But now with the stained barks and the colors, you're actually there's a midnight black that we can get out of San Luis that when you put
I love that bark. I just have to say that right now. I love that.
It's amazing.
I love that. Even with pavers right up against it, it just makes everything stand out.
It does. It gives you that backdrop and that contrast. And again, I know we talk about all the time on this show, but art is art. And when you're taking a photograph, you're thinking of the background, the backdrop. How does the focal point is the plant material. But what are you seeing it in front of? What is the backdrop to that? If it's the house, pick a plant that's going to complement or contrast the house, the color of the house. And the same with the bark, picking plants that would play off of that. Blue agaves with the blue fescues, with lavenders, those grayish, there's tons of succulents that are in that blue-gray, and you put them together and you put that black bark behind them. Oh my gosh, it's an amazing look and feel, and all of a sudden you've taken, maybe a house with a concrete driveway that's just kind of white. Your house is kind of really light tan, maybe got white trim, and then you've got just, standard plants and just regular bark. You can take those seemingly, things, and that could look really nice and could still be clean, but there's just, what we're here to do is to let you know there's deeper colors to go with. There, you can really get into more depth with the landscaping and then the plant choice. And if you're really thinking about it in terms of color and contrast and complementaries and really saying, man, and then doing it with your style and your personality, that's what's going to bring you from like to love.
Colors are so important. I mean, look at color television, color portraits.
There you go.
I mean, it's all around us. Color is everywhere. Without color, things would be boring.
Who doesn't
wouldn't
love
look as good. I mean, think about that. Food alone. Food, that's what intrigues us to try something new, and smell, touch. It's one of the senses I feel that most people don't even know, they don't really pay too much attention to.
You're absolutely right, Jonathan. And we can tend to forget about those things, if we're not designers or thinking about color every single day. So it's something that, I'm glad this show was about, bringing that to our forefront of our minds, talking about the hardscaping and the pavers and the plant materials, the colors of the bark, all that fun stuff. So thanks for tuning in today to another edition of Patio Side Chats here with Chaparral. I am Fernando of Chaparral Pavers, here with my partner, Jonathan Araya, and we're here every Sunday at 12:30. So check us out. You can always reach us on the phone at 805-588-6917 or catch us on the web at ilovetoComeHome.com. So we will see you next week right here on 1240 KSMA. See you next time.
This has been Patio Side Chats with Fernando Martinez from Chaparral Pavers. Go to ilovetocomehome.com to find out more or call 805-588-6917. And be sure and tune in next week at this same time for Patio Side Chats here on KSMA.